Time for Inspiration Monday. Remember, you can get in touch with us. SMS lines are open. It's 22422. You can also feel free to tweet me at Joey_Mutengi. That's JOEY_Mutengi at Citizen TV Kenya. Just use the hashtag Power Breakfast with your questions and your comments. Well, this morning, we are privileged to have Wali Odendo back with us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
We are going to talk a little bit about persistence this morning.
Yes.
Persisting through trials on days when it just doesn't feel like the easier option.
Yes.
You know, rising beyond personal, professional trials that are no stranger to any of our lives. But maybe I want to start talking about resilience.
Yes.
Where does resilience come from? Is that an acquired skill? Is it something that we need to practice? I mean, what types of, events lead us up to that place in our life where we say, you know what, this is a trial, but I'm going to be resilient and I'm going to get through this?
I think resilience, first of all, is an acquired skill. It's something you develop. All human abilities are developed. Some people may come with slightly more based on how they were brought up. But all human abilities, whether it is success or failure, resilience or non-resilience, all these things are developed. And the mind is a very versatile organ. It takes the character of the investment you put into it. And so for you to develop that resilience, you have to know that you don't develop resilience when you're in the storm. By the time you get to the storm, it's a quality that you must have inculcated in yourself prior to any other storm. It's a virtue and a value that you grow yourself with. So I would say that that's a priority that you must make before you ever get into the storm. It's an ability that you must teach yourself consistently, that even when things are good, I must keep raising my threshold of pain higher. Yep.
Threshold of pain. I like that you brought up the storm because that's where I was headed next. And I think during those situations, everyone needs some kind of anchor to hold them down throughout that storm so that you're not blown away with the wind. What are some of those anchors that anchor us during that, tumultuous period in our lives?
I'll say three things come into place. The first one is perception. The second one is priority. And the third one is the process that you put into place. Let's talk about perception. All reality is perception. All what I have seen people say, this is why I quit. I went through a tough breakup. And somebody say, this is why my life changed. That breakup gave me focus. Why? It's the same event, but different perception. And what does perception do? It sifts through the rubble and chooses what is going to be the priority. And when it isolates the priority, then it puts behind it the energy and the process that you're going to go through it. I know sometimes when you talk like this on air, people think, man, life is just PPP, DDD, AAA. But the thing I've come to see, especially when it comes to what this subject of resilience and persistence, you'll discover that the two problems of the mind, because the mind is an escape organ. It is normally not a very ambitious, high-going organ. It's a very self-preserving organ. It likes to protect itself. And you'll discover it's fear and pain. And the mind, without facts, comes up with a computation and it creates fear. And if you see, it because the mind wants to live in certainty. And whenever it lacks certainty, it computes that there is no possibility. And so it summarizes it as fear. And what does it do? It says, don't start. So fear is the don't start button in our mind. And then pain, on the other side, the mind computes pain and reads end. So when it goes through something and it meets pain here, it says, this is the end. And so these two things, and that's why threshold and training makes the mind more elastic, because it trains the mind that just because you don't have certainty, it does not mean don't start. Yeah. And just because you're feeling overly going through a painful season or a painful thing, whenever it reads pain, as it seeks to preserve itself so that it doesn't feel more pain, it doesn't mean end. And so that's why people end up becoming, let me say, average people, because they will say, my fear made me to start, or a pain made me to stop. But that's why persistence comes in, because persistence will make, when people saw fear and say, don't start, the persistent moved in and waited, and the certainty came as they were moving there. Or they went to the second limit where it felt painful doing it. And when they sensed the pain, when everybody felt it's too painful, I can't go on, this one said, regardless of the pain or regardless of the pain, based on where you went to school, the other one said, I felt pain and I said, when everybody said stop, he never said pain is a stopping point. And so you have to learn that that's where the great live. They live beyond fear and beyond the pain. And that's where greatness lives. Within fear and within pain, that's where mediocrity lives.
Yeah. And, you know, it's important, I think, as you're going through this process and deciding that I am going to persist through this, that you turn that fear into courage. Because courageous people, like you're saying, successful people live outside of those boundaries. I mentioned personal and professional trials, and I'm sure everyone watching right now has had to deal with a difficult coworker, a difficult boss, you know, and those are some situations that can just let you, you know, make you sit down and think, like, is it really worth it? I mean, and what I'm doing here at this organization worth so much pain? Talk to us about
when
that.
it comes to especially professional, let me use professional pressure. The number one thing is that you must remain professional. And that means that you cannot allow a colleague or a superior in one office distort how you will transition to your next office by making you act in an inappropriate manner, because your actions will linger longer than your intentions. And so you must insist on yourself that I have to remain professional, regardless of how much fear and pain I am feeling. I have to remain professional. Secondly, I have to find a way of discussing or debriefing this matter outside the pressure or creating pressure, because people don't know this. Let me talk about two kinds. Let me start with when it's pain from a boss. It's top down. Many people don't know how to handle bosses. They assume that when we mobilize, we legitimize our cause. But when you're dealing with a senior, when you mobilize, you don't legitimize your cause. When you mobilize, you know, if you have a problem maybe with your seniors and you decide, I'll get 5 or 6 people or 9, then I'll come with them so that we feel that our cause is legitimate, you have lost your case. Because you are creating a language of communication that shall be used as a tool of insubordination. So the boss reading that, you may have a right cause, but because of the methodology that you've used, he knows very well. If you can mobilize 9 people behind you to tell me this, then that simply means soon and very soon, you'll be able to mobilize 10 people to push for another agenda. So you've already lost the case. So you may have a right cause, but you chose the wrong methodology. That's one thing you have got to know. When you're dealing with bosses or when you're dealing with seniors, the quieter and the fewer and the lesser you are, the healthier and more hygienic and more open he will be. When you open it up like that, you are not going to have what I would say the perfect response. Unfortunately, we always think that if we gather ourselves like 10, 15 pieces of, we are going to put the bell on the cat. The more we are, the more the bell will ring on the cat. And you discover it doesn't work like that. Let's talk about at the same level, whereby this is pressure and versus pressure, about people who are equal in authority or function. When it is coming from there, you have to know that this professional pain, you have to know that somebody is fighting for space and somebody is fighting for a voice. And you have to, first of all, justify your value outside this competition of equals. Because whenever people are equal, somebody wants to make that I am more equal than the other. Or like as you know, when you draw a circle, somebody wants to say, but I'm the most curved part of the circle. But for us to be a circle, all of us are curved. When you're dealing with equals, you have to know by giving people space, because the person does not have jurisdiction over you. That means that I am not mandated to be in their space, but I am mandated to work with them to perform the big picture. That is why we were brought here. You are in IT, I'm in finance, but you're all equal. So I have to make sure when I need something from IT, I'll submit it through. We don't have to, you know, we put a lot of pressure on us that we are trying to build friendships in the office. And
That
when
is
the
not the place to
friendship
look
does
for
not
friends.
work,
I'll tell
you
you
start
that right
getting
now.
stressed.
Yeah.
There are people you'll build very good camaraderie with them in the office, and it will work. But when it doesn't work, go back to the base. We are just here to work.
To work, yeah.
And if you're not friends, sasa tukipitana kwa corridor lazima nikunje uso, nikuonyeshe ya kuwa whom do you think you are? Ama lunchtime tunakula pale chipo, we have to laugh loudly to show you that our jokes zinabamba than the jokes across the table. Just give yourself space and define your space, and then limit that space and say any person who feels like they are not comfortable with this space of mine, that's not how I roll, and I'm not under pressure to do that. Now let's talk about you and the people beneath you, because many of us, we are very good when you're trying to get the boss or to get our equal. But let's talk about you and the person beneath you. That kind of pressure, if you're not careful, the people beneath you, they carry within themselves the ability for you to either achieve your goal and execute properly, or not to achieve your goal and execute properly. If you create an environment where information does not reach you in its truest form, it reaches you repackaged and all that, you're going to be at a loss. And this is going to make you be always fighting for your life. The best that can be is that you cannot wait until things go wrong to start talking. You have to build a relationship with the people on a, I call it the corridor relationship. Not the office relationship, but the corridor relationship. That corridor relationship will help you be able to function in the office, because now you know what happens in the corridors when I'm working. Is the tea okay? Are you getting enough milk? Are you getting enough bread? Is this okay? Are you getting enough? So that corridor meeting, because I always tell, when you talk about leadership, I always tell leaders that the real meeting does not happen in the boardroom. It happens in the corridors. People just sit here to fake, but they've already planned who will say what. And so if you are blind enough to find that you have consensus in the boardroom, the real meeting has already happened before you sat around the boardroom. You have to know that the real meeting happens in the corridors. And so you have to be in that corridor and know what is happening in these corridors. And if you're not the chair in the corridor, you're not going to be the chair in the board. And you're going to struggle with execution, because you're not going to have resonance, but dissonance. You're going to offer, this is our target, this is what we need to execute. Then they go down to the corridor to cut it down. So you'll always be wondering, I have a very high talented team, I have a high capacity team. But what is happening? Somebody somewhere is jamming your signal. And most likely, it's either the people who are equal to you. They're the ones who feel like, no, we can't go that route. No, we can't. They're the ones who go and take over the corridors. And by the time you're doing your work, the corridor has already been jammed. And that's why persistence and grounding yourself in who you are is going to be very, very important when it comes to achieving as a team.
It's tough territory to navigate, though,
That's the toughest.
in the workplace,
That's
because
the toughest.
a lot of times, everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants their idea to count. Everyone wants to feel like I have a voice in this situation. But what do you do now when you're dealing with a situation where you are definitely in the right, someone else is definitely in the wrong, but then you have to keep that level of professionalism and say, like you're saying, this is work, this is not ego-driven, because I think a lot of us react from a place of ego of, no, I need you to know I'm right.
I tell people, know your rank and know who bears the burden of consequence. If I'm not the head, I'm the advisor, and my job is to advise, and you bear the burden of consequence, and you opt not to work with my advice, I have to know where my rank ends. Unfortunately, we try to carry our rank, and that's why ego comes and messes up, is that we try to carry our rank over and above where our rank is. And so you find yourself, you feel, oh, they don't value me, oh, they put me down. But simply, you're trying to function at a rank that you've not been allowed in. And you're going to have strife, you're going to have tension. You have to be comfortable in knowing that my counsel may be right and rejected, because I am not the person in rank. The burden of consequence is not in me. If you are the head, and the other way happens, whereby the burden of consequence lies with you, and the person whom you're trying to convince that, hey, this is what you've got to do, then you must know this particular person. When you see stubbornness in a person or a team player, and in terms of absorbing a goal or a vision or an idea, know that the problem is not the goal or the idea. He has either something personal, or there is another mind in their mind. And that's why it's very important you have to know what's happening at the corridors. That's always, I tell the leaders, when you're finding difficulty in trying to even convince somebody around you, go to the corridor. The meeting has shifted. The meeting has moved. There's a corridor meeting happening, and that corridor meeting has already taken over. And so you're trying to sell that, hey, this is right, but this person cannot see. Just know somebody has already planted a filter in them, and they cannot receive you.
For a lot of people who are dealing with different trials and tribulations, shall we call them, in their lives, there are people who don't even get to the point of rising up to accept that I'm going to face this trial. We scare off even before we get to that point of accepting that I'm going to face this. That's the fear that you were talking about. How do we overcome that? How do we...
I always tell people communication requires courage, and communication is the highest form of courage. For many of us, we procrastinate what would be done with words, and eventually we have to use weapons. Because you took too long to use words, and eventually weapons have got to be used, where words could have already resolved the matter. You have to know that when you're talking about process, because you've identified priority, when you identify priority, we get to process. And whether it's organizational, whether it's personal, the most important thing is that whom do I need to communicate to? And by communication, I mean, whom do I need to lay it bare? I don't need to burn the house just to say I was right. Then you're left with a point and you've burnt the house. Now everybody can see, hey, by the way, you are right. But now we have to build, at what cost? Because being right does not mean you are perfect. And that's what many of us, we keep putting ourselves in, is that we make our being right to being perfect. And so you find that especially when you are not the one in rank. And this is why persistence and resilience is very tough. Particularly when you're not the one in rank. You find that when you are right, there's a feeling like I am perfect, that you sell, that I feel like these people are not seeing me, and me, I've seen the big picture. But I've come to see your head can see more than your knees. Even, and we are not saying the knees are not important, but your head has got the organs that can see more, smell more, taste more, eat more. Everything that enters your body enters through your head. And maybe you're here at the shoulder, and you're feeling, well, I think I'm strong, I can do everything. But if the head does not put enough food in, or go to the right places, you'll not have the right nutrition there. So it takes courage to communicate, and you have to isolate and say, who do I need to communicate this with? If I have to communicate with Joey, and I go and talk to Tom or Willis, now, I'm not now communicating. What am I doing? I am capitalizing on what I need to tell you because I have found something. So I have decided to use it as capital to gain and stir up Willis, so that by the time I come to you, I'm not coming with as I'm coming now as the weight of everything coming down on you. And what will happen to you? You will resist. Automatically, you will resist.
I'm looking at your motives.
You're looking at me and thinking, this is an issue between you and I. What is Willis doing here? Before long, Jeff and Jalas is there. Before long. And so you're wondering, all this, and what is the isolated item that needed to be done? So you'll already see, when you needed to speak to me, you went and formed a community. So you have already lost me in the process. It was not about me. It was about you. And so it takes courage to communicate.
For someone who's not been fortunate enough to gain that courage yet, or has not gotten to the point in their life that they feel resilient and have just been experiencing constant hardships. I'm sure you've heard the phrase of someone saying, sometimes I feel like I'm cursed. You know, why all these bad things happening to me? And they just, you know, it's a pattern of facing trials in the wrong way.
Go for prayer.
And you just say, I'm cursed, man.
You know, this city has enough of people who can do real prayers for you. So start by going for prayers. But I can say, when it comes to, for somebody who feels like that, that already means that you have allowed your experiences to form your attitude. And I like to reinforce that attitude is greater than ability, and attitude is greater than experiences. In any situation, once your attitude has been reduced or broken, I call it you have a broken arrow. Now, life has broken through. You begin to feel like, I am overwhelmed. The people I've tried, I feel cursed, I feel burdened. That's an attitude problem. That already means you are breaking down. Because what was supposed to guard you from breaking down? Because you need attitude to go over fear and to go over pain. And the reason why you can't communicate, and the reason why you can't put yourself out there, because even courage is an attitude. It is not an inborn quality that, you know, me, I was born courageous,
Yeah.
I was born. You're not born courageous.
Yeah.
You found yourself in a place whereby you had to be courageous. So what did you do? You had to form an attitude. You had to make your mind to develop that form that it can be able to perform even when it is not excited. And so you have to learn, and I would urge people that, especially with what you're seeing around this country, domestic violence and what, when you see weapons coming into place, no, words have not been used. And so the people who lack the courage to use words, they will be the same people who will have now the courage to pick up fists. And so that just says you chose the lesser form of intelligence, which is violence, the lesser form of intelligence, which is gossip and slander. That's the lesser form. The purest form and the highest form of intelligence is discretion, whereby I can come to you and I have to find it in me to serve you the hot dish. And when I'm done with serving you the hot dish, I have to know I have no power over your reaction, and I have no power over the consequences of what I'll tell you. But I have to let you know that what I'm telling you right now is you and me. If it required a third party, that party would be here. I've always created a system personally for me is that I always tell people, if you want to tell me something, don't come with a mob. Because I can hear words.
Yeah.
Don't come with a mob. Immediately you put a mob, even if you are right, you are wrong. Because this mob has chosen you as the head. And a mob has a head, but it doesn't have, you don't know the motivation. So any person beneath that, behind the mob, will throw everything at you, and you are just voicing it.
Yeah.
And so what will that happen? It will come and steal our relationship.
Yeah.
And there cannot be relationship without information. And if I'm struggling to give you information, yet I want a relationship with you, then I don't want a relationship with you. I am using you for my own benefit.
Yeah.
So I have lost already the value of our relationship.
Yeah.
Now I am into our rewards. What's the reward of me and Joey working out? So that reward has become so important. I don't care whether people are stabbing you, chopping you down, poking your eye, pulling out your liver and your limbs. As long as I'm getting rewarded, it doesn't matter.
So let me ask you this. Is there ever an appropriate time to back down from the trial or from whatever it is that is difficult for us to face? I'm a person who doesn't like to engage in arguments that I see are counterproductive or not constructive. I'll walk away. And so that's kind of my instinct. It's like, nope, not dealing with that today.
And then you go cry in a corner, and then another one comes and another comes. I think there's the best, I will never say there's a wrong time to back away from trial if the relationship is of value. As long as there is value in something, there is always room to put up the effort, and there's always room to put in the effort. But when we find that we are dealing with not just a case where it's lack of understanding, but it's lack of buy-in, whereby somebody has refused to buy in, not my idea, but my vision, the big picture. You know, I may not buy into your idea, but I've bought into your vision. And that means what? We have something to work in. But if I've not bought into your vision, and we are in sharing the same space, like for me, maybe my vision, we have the book, we have the next book about to come out, we have all this, and that's the vision, that's the thing we want to roll, and you've not bought into that. So already you start saying, how did the first book do? I don't think. So already tells me you don't believe in me enough to want to be able to play a part in making the dream come to pass. So what will you do? You'll puncture holes in the vision, not the idea. The idea is a tool that can be used to fulfill a vision. So that already tells me that your spirit and your mind and your heart does not see me having the ability to be whoever you think is the best-selling author in the world. You don't think I have it. But the same energy you deprive from me, I see you pouring it into somebody else, then that makes it harder to work with. And that's why I would say the best thing is, first of all, you have to define space. You have to say, hey, I think maybe what is needed is for the space for you to go find yourself. Because you are trying to find yourself through my vision. And so you are coming into my vision, trying to make my vision feel small so that you become big. So I have to make it smaller so that you become bigger, or you have not allowed yourself to buy into exactly where do I want to get to. So consistently, you are raising obstacles in my path, thinking that you're bringing ideas, counsel, but you're raising hurdles. And vision is already a hurdle. Achievement is already a hurdle. Success is tough. Success is overcoming resistance. That's what success is all about. You overcome resistance. Now, that resistance cannot be you. And we have this friendship. We have this history. We have to be able to overcome that resistance. So you have to find a way to ask yourself, what's the value? If I'm having teeth with Dendo, then how valuable is Dendo for me to maintain teeth? If it's of no value, if Dendo actually has no value, then you'll actually see you're spending your best bullets on somebody whose expiry date has come.
Wow. I think one thing I'm getting throughout this whole process of dealing with or persisting through trials is that it does really make you reflect on yourself, and and hopefully you're learning through it. You're discovering what you're made of. You're coming out on the other side a little stronger, a little more mature. So that's on a positive note. I think that's also a reason not to back down from the trials, to go into that space you said beyond fear and pain. Really, that's all the time we had this morning, but do appreciate you stopping by. You said the second book is coming? The
second book is coming in the month of June.
Okay.
We are going to be talking about it. It's on branding and scaling up. I want to put some ideas out there for people who are either starting up or are into art and into enterprise. So it's coming out. I'm co-authoring it with a lady.
Okay.
So I wrote it, and then I figured a lady can add some extra spice from my kind of writing. So that's it. So it's coming out in June. So we'll be here for it, and the first one is already here.
Breaking the Back of Luck.
Breaking the Back of Luck. It's available, and they can order it from, they can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or call us 0722 92 50 31. Okay. That's where to get us.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We shall persist through another week. Another work week. There's a holiday at the end of it, so it'll be a short one. We've got more coming up here on Power Breakfast. Willis Abru is on location. We're going to be doing Sporty Monday live on location. And of course, we've got music to take us to the top of the hour as well. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.